Hi everybody, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me, and this is what I've got for you today. My crafting roots are very much in the grunge, mixed media, distressed, altered art, that kind of field. And the blog that I used to have before I joined Stampin' Up, it's called Altered Ego, it's still out there, hasn't been updated for a very long time, was very much about, that kind of look. Now, it's not one that Stampin' Up is, specialises in, at least not at the moment. And I thought I would challenge myself to try and make something with that, that distressed, steampunky, grungy kind of look. And this is what I've made. Now, this project was very product heavy. Used a couple of different die sets, a couple of different stamp sets. It's not one that you can just make with stamps, inks and paper. It's not simple stamping. But once in a while, I do like to indulge myself. So that's what I've been doing today. Stay with me, show you what I did. This is a piece of crumb cake. It's actually probably much more than I need, but I may as well make a few gears while I'm at it. And I've got some glycerine, and I've got my my rather ratty sponge. So this is a piece of ordinary kitchen scourer, and I've just pulled lumps out of it with my fingers and a tweezer, just to kind of make it, well, ratty. And I'm going to start off with, let's go cut tone on tone, and I'm going to start with some crumb cake. So let's put a dollop of that down there. And the reason why I do this is to stop myself from contaminating it with the glycerine, which is my magic fluid, which makes everything better. And I'm just dabbing my sponge over, picking up the colour, and just dabbing randomly all over my card. Dab, dab, dab. Yep. Not being too precious about it, just trying to get some in most of the areas, so I'm happy with that. That can go away. So next we're going to try some soft suede. Dab of that. I've got one of these nice craft mats, but you could just work on, piece of plastic. Just something that's not absorbent, because you don't want the ink disappearing into your bit of paper. You could work with something like some grid paper, something like that, piece of paper. You would just, you'd lose more ink than you really want to. And as you notice, I am not changing my sponge, and that's another beauty of working onto a craft mat rather than direct onto the stamp pads, because I'm not worried about contaminating anything. And if you do contaminate your ink pad, you know what, it's not the end of the world. There are ways that you can clean it off again. But honestly, I think I'd rather not if I didn't have to. So I'm just going to wipe that up with my Simply Chamois, which is probably due to go back into the washing machine a bit later on. So when I throw my my tea towels and my dishcloths in, I shall probably chuck that in as well. Okay, this is a bit of an experiment. This is terracotta tile. This is one of the new colours, and as you can see, it's a very stiff stamp pad. I need to open and close that a few times. So normally I'd probably go for pumpkin pie here, but I'm going to experiment with the terracotta tile, because it's a bit redder, a bit rustier. Now you can see how that is starting to look good and rusty. Okay, not too much, don't want to overdo it. And last of all, a teeny tiny bit of Cajun Craze. And again, not too much of this at all, because it is quite a strong colour. It's one that doesn't really get much of an outing, Cajun Craze. And I don't know why, because it is a really gorgeous, deep russet colour. It's beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to set this on aside for a few minutes while I clean up, and then I want to go and get a heat-proof mat, because this is a brand new surface, and I've had it less than a week, and I don't want to kill it on its first outing. So yeah, give me a few minutes and I'll be back. So now I'm working on a heat-proof surface. I've got clear embossing powder and I've got Versamark ink, and I'm just going to drag that very lightly, barely touching it. All over the surface, and then I'm going to take my clear embossing powder and I'm going to sprinkle it all over the top. Okay, now I've got more on there than I want, so I'm just going to take it off, which is what you don't normally do, but this time you do. And I'm even going to take a sponge and lightly brush away. Add back on. And what I'm not hoping for is a very, very light covering of embossing powder. Okay, so light that you can hardly see it. Okay, so I'm going to go with that to begin with, and if there's not enough, I can come back and I can do it again. Okay, so here we go with the heat gun. Now that is starting to look like rusty pitted metal, which is the effect that I am going for. So I'm going to take this away and I'm going to cut out a whole pile of gears of different shapes and sizes, and then we can start putting things together. I've die cut 2 heart-shaped pieces of card using this die from the Be Mine dies. This one is in Poppy Parade. I'm going to put that one on one side just for a moment because I'm going to start working with this one. This one happens to be, I think it's early espresso, but it doesn't really matter. I just want a dark coloured card for my background, and this was handy, so that's what I'm using. So here are the gears that I have been cutting out, and I only really want to cover this half of the shape. So I'm just lining things up kind of where I want them, and I'll go over a little bit, but not too much. Okay. Okay, so I can snip this one away, definitely. I shall keep that one. And I shall snip this one away. Definite. Okay, so that leaves me with those pieces. Now I've got a piece that I've been playing around with here, which will kind of help me see where I want things to be, because if I'm not going to use the whole thing, do you know what? I'm going to cut it away and use it on something else. Okay, so how am I looking there? Well, I can definitely cut off half of that one. And okay, I could cut away a bit of that one, but I don't think I'm going to risk it. So I'm going to get in my liquid adhesive and I'm going to lay that down generously all over these pieces. And now that piece that I cut off there can come in somewhere else. And yeah, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time just building up the dies and the cogs on the front of this card. So at the moment, this Poppy Parade heart is a bit too clean and tidy for my liking. So at the moment, this heart is a bit too clean and pristine for my liking. So I'm going to give it a bit of grey granite ink on this Gallery Grunge stamp. And I'm going to try and kind of keep it mainly over to this side, to the left hand side, because the right hand side is going to be more or less absent. Okay, so quite happy with that. And let me see. Oh, where are my sponges? Here they are. Got myself a sponge. My favourite old kitchen sponge. Let's go around the edges. Make it all look grungy and gunky. Love this grey granite ink, it is wonderful. It's kind of a warm grey, I suppose is the best way of describing it. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Trimmer, which has retired, and we're all very sad about it, but you know what, life goes on. I'm just going to score that, fold that in half, again with the grey granite ink, and let's stick this. I could have just cut it in half, I could, but I do like the nice kind of finished edge that you get with a fold on a card. And I'm using my ruler because I haven't got my bone folder out. So there we go. So that's coming along nicely. So that is going to sit right on there, just like that. And let's do the background while we're here. So this is a piece of I was going to say Coastal Cabana. It's not Coastal Cabana. I was going to use Coastal Cabana, but I changed my mind, and this is Pool Party. So yeah, quite lightly and quite randomly. Because it's largely going to be covered up. Go. And edges. I do love making me a grungy card. And yeah, there is a lot going on this card. There's a lot of technique, there's a lot of product, and I do, generally when I'm making videos, I kind of try and restrict myself because, you know, not everyone's a Stampin' Up demonstrator. But if you want to be a Stampin' Up demonstrator and you're not one and you're in the UK, you know, I am recruiting. I would love to have you in my team. But anyway, so normally I do try and kind of restrain myself and try not to use every product that I own. But once in a while, just gotta break free. Okay, so this is embossing paste. Stampin' Up sell two kinds, the shimmery kind and the plain white kind. This is the plain white kind, I hope. I'm just going to take a little bit of it and put it onto my acrylic block, and I'm going to add a little bit, just a drop, of Coastal Cabana Reinka and mix that in. And a tiny drop of Bermuda Bay. These two colours play very nicely together. And now I'm making kind of a lovely patina paste. And this I'm going to add to the highlights and lowlights of the gears. So I'm just kind of scraping it over. Not using very much. I've actually got more there than I think I'm going to need, so I'm probably going to be putting texture paste on everything for 5 minutes. Just around the edges there as well. I want to stamp the words "You're the best," but I want them in 3 separate lines, if you know what I mean. So I want "You're" on its own, "the" on its own, and "best" on its own. So I've got a little bit of postie tape and I've covered up the words "the" and "best." And I'm going to ink up my stamp on soft suede ink, and I'm going to pull away those 2 pieces, and I'm just going to stamp "your." And I got a little bit of a blot there, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to cut that away. So now I have another bit of postie tape, and I'm covering up the words "your" and "best," because I just want the word "the" all going to be cut apart. And last of all, the one I want now is just the word "best." So there's a bit more tape. It's got an AWOL. I happen to be using post-it tape because I happen to have tracked some down, but you could just use the sticky bit of a post-it note. It would work just as well. Okay, so now I have my words "you're the best," and I'm going to trim them apart. So I'm just literally just trimming quite close to the stamping. So that's why it doesn't matter that I've got a little bit of a blot there, because it's going to be trimmed away. And there's my neighbour's dog has something to say. I'm not sure whether I mentioned, but this is just a scrap of pool party card. Okay. And I'm not sure whether I said, but this stamp came from the A Good Man stamp set. And there it is. That is my finished card front. Now I haven't mounted it onto a card just yet. I will do. But yeah, but that is it. And you know, yes, it was intricate. It was complex. There were a lot of parts to it. But I really had a lot of fun making it, letting my hair down, going back to what I used to do about 5 years ago. And that is it for today. So thank you very, very much for joining me. Hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if so, then, you know, leave me a comment, let me know. And I will be back again sometime soon, but for now, bye bye.